Welcome, Salt. We are here and talking about things and, stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
Yes, we are. And, it's been quite a week.
A week?
Yeah. We've done lots of stuff this week.
Have we done lots of stuff this week?
Nope. Anyway, so graduation weekend. Aspen is heading out to graduation tonight. Why they do graduations on Saturday night?
9 p.m. 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
I've been up since 5 minutes to 5.
And she'll be up later tonight because they're doing graduation at night.
9 p.m.
So family and friends, those of you who kind of watch and track Aspen's growing up, she is a junior this year and she will be marching in, I don't know, do you guys have to wear anything specific?
Nice clothes.
Nice clothes. We had to, in Pisgah, all the juniors had to wear white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the girls had to have a white dress and the guys wore a white Oxford.
Yeah, and khaki pants, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll be doing that tonight, and school is officially out, and the college or the university got out a few weeks ago, and so summer will officially be here probably on Sunday, because graduation is the last thing that Aspen has to be at, last required presence, and then she's free for a few weeks, not that long, till it's back to school, more learning and education. Yay. And, but yeah, so summer for us, I guess, officially begins on Sunday.
Sunday, which is also
the end of the month. And that means bills. And everyone knows bills come at the end of the month.
It's also
Miranda's birthday on the 29th. Yay!
And Sunday is
my birthday.
Brett's birthday.
Yeah,
yes.
Big deal.
Tomorrow.
Anyway.
Brett's birthday.
Tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, well, we made it another year. Ooh, ah.
Well, it beats the alternative.
Yeah, as I said, a lot of people say, oh, how are you? And I'm like, I am, which is better than the alternative. And they take a second and go, oh. Anyway, so we've got quite the birthday run. The 24th is my official federal birthday, according to my birth certificate, but it's also Autumn's.
Yes, it's also our daughter-in-law's
birthday is 24th. And then my real birthday, according to my mom, is the 26th. Then Miranda's 29th.
And Ryan is May the 3rd.
So lots in May.
Yes, yeah. May is a good month to have birthdays.
Yep. And then, so anyway. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. I don't know what we're here to talk about. I don't know what we're talking about. What are we talking about?
I know, right? What are we talking about? Well, okay, so since we had to teach Sabbath school today.
Yes, we taught Sabbath school.
We're just going to kind of spin off that a little. And it sounded like a really good idea until I just sat down right now and I was like, oh, we're still in Revelation. And so we talked about the sixth seal today, seal number 6.
The sixth seal is sick. That's a theater vocal warm-up we used to use. We sort of gave the overview and then focused on the 6th and 7th seal, beginning of the 7th seal.
Right. Basically, my chapter was called the sealing of God's people, but they didn't quite finish up last week, and so we went ahead and just covered the 6th seal and moved into the other. Then they actually really kind of went together.
Yeah.
In the end-ish.
Yeah. We're probably studying Revelation the worst possible way you can. Just kind of 4 or 5 different teachers, different weeks. You never know how far you're going to get in one week, so you're not real sure what you're going to teach the next week.
Yeah, that, and you've got, our class has 3 theologians, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Brett, and then another guy. The other guy fills in, and then of course Brett teaches when I teach, and the other guy's not currently teaching. So, yeah, and then the rest of us are just ordinary people who really don't know that much about Revelation, except what we're currently reading in the book.
Yeah.
So, it is interesting.
Yeah.
But fun.
It is.
It's fun for us.
Yeah. Last week, the guy got as far as the 5th seal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's supposed to do all the seals. And he ran out and he did the 5th seal. And oh, well, I guess next week they'll do the 6th and 7th seal, And, Miranda's already preparing for the 144,000, and the multitude of God. And yet, oh, wow, now we've got the 6th seal. So we had to finish that off. But instead I thought, well, let's just give them a big picture. We're getting too mired down into the little stuff. Let's do a big picture and then talk about the 144,000 and stuff.
Yeah, well, the 6th seal kind of leads you into the sealing of God's people.
Yeah,
Ish.
That's what I was telling him. Like the first 4 seals, the 4 horsemen, right? The, white rider and the black rider, red rider, black rider, pale rider. Those 4 things are all about the experience of God's people in the church through, time and history. And it sets up the 5th seal. So the first 4 seals are all this experience and all the stuff that's going on with persecution and death and pestilence and whatever. And that sets up the 5th seal, which is you open this, the souls onto the altar, and it's everyone who's been martyred, and they're like, how long, Lord, do we cry out, And it's just a little bit longer until the number of your, brothers die by the sword, whatever. And then that then leads to the 6th seal. And the 6th seal is, you open and there was an earthquake and the stars fell and the, sun was dark and the moon turned to blood. And, then the heavens open as a scroll, da, 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 da. And so those are all events and major events. And it's the, last days and, turbulence and tribulations, which then moves into, and that opens up, it kind of sets up the next part, which is that what we're talking about?
Oh, the sealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the 144,000, because the 6th seal ends with, all this trial and tribulation, turmoil, who can stand? Who can stand through all this? So again, the first 4 seals set up the 5th seal. The 5th seal sets up the 6th seal. The 6th seal ends with who can stand under all this tribulation, which sets up the part where it's kind of inserted between the 6th and 7th seal, the 144,000. So as soon as the kings of the earth and the slaves of the field all cry out, who can stand? Then comes the answer. Well, I heard the number of the 144,000, and I saw the great multitude, and that was, the sealed of God. And that's kind of what we've tried to focus on today.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I think the reason people get interested in learning about Revelation, what it all means and stuff, is because they want to be part of the sealed of God. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be the other people who are not the sealed of God.
Yeah. It was like major, when I was in high school, it was like, and even after high school, and all the, evangelistic series they'd bring in, and, the speakers they'd bring in, and it was all this real huge hammering, the 144,000 and the sealed of God, and, that's the special group, and, like a huge emphasis put on that, and then huge emphasis and time spent on what is the seal of God, and how does it, play out in the last days, and to my memory and my belief, it was just this huge overemphasis on the specifics and details of it all instead of what we kind of talked about.
Right, because in order to be sealed, you will need to have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, the seal of God in Adventist theology anyway is nothing more than the gift of the Holy Spirit. It's where it says the seal of God is the ownership of, God's ownership of his people. It's those who keep the commandments of Jesus, those who keep the 10 commandments, and especially the 4th commandment in the end times, the Sabbath. And it's like they really, went to great lengths to go. And it's the commandment keeping people, especially Sabbath. And Sabbath is the key. And you have to keep the Sabbath. That's who the sealed are. And it's like, that's really not all that it is, and that's not the end all of it is. It's a little bit more simple than that.
Right. In a sense, yeah. So, since we like to find the whole relationship with Jesus in Revelation, I was looking for that, and we kind of spun off of the two stories that we told last week for Salt. So, since a lot of you probably went ahead and watched that last week, if you didn't and you want to hear the stories, so you know what we're talking about. Just watch them from last week. They didn't take very long. But they were a couple stories that happened on our road trip. And the point being is that they were character building experiences. And so how do we respond during those character building experiences? And that's going to reveal whether or not we have a relationship with Jesus or not. And I found it interesting in Revelation 6, verse 15. Okay. Then the kings of the earth and the great men and commanders and the rich and the strong and every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves among the rocks and the mountains. And that was Brett already mentioned that. He already mentioned the part where they had the moon turning to blood and the great earthquake and all this kind of such.
Yeah. This is the sixth seal.
Yeah. And the mountains and the islands are moved out of their places. And so then all these people like that, all these different kinds of people, they all hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks and the mountains. And so the question I asked was, what happens in the presence of God? Because this is God showing up, basically. And so what happens in the presence of God? And the answer is not overt at all. And so I had someone else read James 2, verses 1 to 4. My brothers and sisters, do not hold your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ with an attitude of personal favoritism. Basically, we are not supposed to show favoritism to people. For if a man comes into your assembly with a gold ring and is dressed in fine clothes, and a poor man in dirty clothes also comes in, and you pay special attention to the one who is wearing the fine clothes and say, you sit here in this good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand over there, or sit down at my footstool. Have you not made distinctions among yourself and become judges with evil motives? And so basically, when you have the different social hierarchy, like that hierarchy, because you have the kings of the earth and great men and commanders and rich and strong and every slave and free man. Let's see, you got all those people in a room, basically. There is going to be favoritism showed to people that's based on pride, because you're trying to move yourself up the ladder, basically, of the social hierarchy and gain favor. And then, of course, you got those people who are giving the favors and such like that. So what is it that happens in the presence of God?
So what's talking about is like the human characteristic, the human nature is we want to associate ourselves with the bold, the beautiful, the rich, and the powerful. And that's like James is talking about. You know, you get the rich guy coming in and wearing a gold ring and the guy in the bad clothes. Well, if he goes into an Adventist church, the guy in the bad clothes is going to get, he's going to get shown favoritism because the other guy's wearing a ring. You don't wear a ring in the church. Adventists don't wear rings, so he's out, right? No, I mean... So if it's an earring, oh my word! Then,
it would depend on which church you go to.
That's true. Yeah. But it's this human nature that in studies where we have a natural response to trust people who we believe are beautiful. So it could be an Einstein dressed in rags and an idiot dressed in a tuxedo, and we'll trust the tuxedo over the genius just because of the way they look. And you find people don't even realize, they want to be associated with, fame and power and money. And, so they fall, people will follow themselves or do things to, connect themselves to others. In Hollywood, that's how Hollywood works, basically. And so here, the point was you had all those people. And in everyday given life, everyone's jockeying for position and social connection. And yet when you put it all at the end and here comes God, it's the great equalizer. All of a sudden, everybody kind of comes to the stark reality of truth that no one's any better than anybody else.
Yeah,
they're all in the same boat.
Someone else's personal favor, just because they have a higher on the ladder, isn't going to save them from anything.
Yeah.
And which actually Brett used some stories in what he was talking about earlier. You want to read that one about that was the stars falling, right?
No. The stars falling.
Yeah, the stars falling. And I hadn't known that he had picked that story and was going to have that read, but it worked out really well as an illustration for how people treat people, just in everyday living, and yet when they feel as though, we're in the presence of God and judgment is coming up, all of a sudden behaviors change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was an interesting story, I felt.
So in the sixth seal, you have the events of, there's the great earth. When they opened the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake, and the stars fell, and the sun turned to black cloth, like ash, and then the moon turned to blood, and all that are events that we look back on and say, okay, here's specific where those things actually took place. Those things actually happened. And in the earthquake, we say, was the Great Lisbon earthquake in the 1700s, and it was, the most devastating and worldwide felt type of, disaster. And it was actually the beginning of modern seismology because it was so bad, so big. Like we need to start figuring these things out. So there was a lot of reasons the Lisbon earthquake is like the earthquake of all human history. And then there were specific days where the moon, did appear as blood. There was what they call the dark day where the sun, and it was all like, if you did the last eclipse, there was a few minutes where it was, it turned dark, and it was interesting because you could tell, oh, look, it's kind of like the dark day. But the dark day itself was, 100,000 times dark. I mean, it was like midnight. It wasn't even close to the darkness of the eclipse. It was way. And then one of the things was when the stars fell. And you can go back and you can find newspaper articles and stories of those days that describe what it was like and what happened. And I just pulled one from the dark day and one from the stars that fell. And this is one of the ones from the day that the stars fell. So this was way back. Way back in there. So it says, this one's actually from Murray County in Tennessee. And it was a small girl who was born into slavery, was awoken in her cot by the sound of screaming. It's the story of Amanda Young, who died in 1920 and was recounted in 2010 by her great-great-granddaughter, Angela Walton, as part of family oral history. So her relatives, not just so long ago, was telling this story, and this is, what happened. Somebody, and this is the story she told. Somebody in the quarter started yelling in the middle of the night to come out and to look up at the sky. We went outside, and they were a-falling everywhere. Big stars coming down real close to the ground, and just before they hit, they would burn up. We was all scared, and some of the folks were screaming, and some was praying. We all made so much noise that the white folks came out to see what was happening. They looked up, and then they got scared too. But then the white folks started calling all the slaves together, and for no reason, they started telling some of the slaves who their mothers and fathers was, and who they'd been sold to, and where they were. And the old folks were so glad to hear what the people went, that they made sure we all knew what happened. And you see, they thought it was Judgment Day. So it was back when there was, in slavery. So this was, 1800s and stuff. So it was so vivid and so massive that, these people thought, this is it. This is the end. This is Judgment Day.
Yeah, and while it apparently was all okay to be mistreating people, but as soon as they found themselves in what they thought was the presence of God, they realized that things had better change. How they treated people was not a good thing, and that they should be treating them really more with kindness and love and such like that. Yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, I did think that was interesting. And basically, the difference between the sealed and the unsealed is how they use their character building experiences. And those who are sealed because they recognize they are equal with everyone else. Sure, there are the rich, the poor, and all the other opposites, where we like to consider one better than the other, right? But in the presence of God, we are all equal because we all lack the ability to save ourselves. And that is something that those white masters recognized when all of a sudden they thought it was Judgment Day. We're like, oh, it's time to change our ways, basically.
Yeah, and there's other stories you can like where it's kind of interesting that there's a lot of the slaves that actually thought it was Judgment Day as well, and they were singing and they were actually happy, and yet the slave owners were coming out and trying, and they were terrifying and screaming and trying to make and the slaves actually, some were like, oh, it's Freedom Day, and kind of an interesting,
Yeah, because for example, those who are sealed of God, it would be a Freedom Day for them.
Yeah. And then it talks about some of the white, people like, pray for us, tell God we're not all that bad, begging the slaves for, and again, like the great equalizer.
Yeah, humility basically is a really great equalizer when we recognize that we aren't the all that we thought we were. Okay, so that is how chapter 6 wrapped up. Is with the 6th seal, and it ended. They were asking to panic. Who's able to stand? Who's able to stand? Right?
Yeah, because the 6th seal, the next thing you have is a scroll. The heavens were open like a scroll, and when that's the second coming. So the 6th seal ends at the second coming, where the 7th seal actually picks up at the beginning of the second coming, and right there in between is this 104,000 sealed.
Okay, so Revelation 7 provides the answer. Those who will be able to stand on the great day of God's wrath are the sealed people of God. So to summarize Revelation 7, very summarized, it starts with the 4 winds being held back until the sealing of God's servants. And then it goes into a bunch of stuff really about the 144,000. Who are the sealed of God?
Right.
Yes. So basically, the blowing winds are associated with God's wrath. That's mentioned there in Revelation 6:17. And they take place during the time of the Great Tribulation mentioned later in the scene. So the blowing winds are another way to describe the 7 last plagues, which are the fullness of God's wrath.
And again, you can really get into the details of this, like, wind is used in the Old Testament and even some by Jesus in the New Testament. We know it's through the, turmoil and the wrath of God. We know because that is the symbol that has been used, in many places. Daniel and Zephaniah and Zechariah and Ezekiel. And so that's why we know it means what you're saying it means. Yeah.
Right, yeah. In Revelation 15:1, I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues last, because with them God's wrath is completed.
Over, yeah.
Yes. So that word wrath just reminded me of Romans 12:19-21. And
why?
Because it talks about wrath as well.
Oh.
Yes. It says, never take your own revenge, but leave room for the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him to drink. For in so doing, you will heap burning coals of fire onto his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And so, I just thought that was interesting. First of all, those who seek revenge then are in contrast with what you're supposed to do, which is to, feed your enemy if they're hungry, give them water if they're thirsty, and such, rather than to seek revenge against them. And so once again, it's the unsealed acting in a certain way and the sealed of God acting in a different way. And so basically, right, okay. So going back to Revelation 6:17, with the kings of the earth, the commanders, the rich, the strong, the free, the slave, all running about, currying favor, right? And also seeking revenge, because in any political situation, in any other kind of, even in the smallest ways, children can do it, seeking revenge on occasion. In families, at work, there's always those little moments that you can seek your own revenge rather than leaving room for the wrath of God. And so anyways, even before I associated this with the Revelation wrath here, I could always just sort of like picture the angel of God just pressing people back, saying, leave room for the wrath of God, back up further, because really, the wrath of God is big. The power that God has is big. So back off, and don't seek your own revenge, but leave room for the wrath of God. And so, you were going to talk about how we can just, these days, people seek revenge on social media and such like that.
I was?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Because you had it all figured out.
Well, I mean, what we're really kind of getting here is that, what's it look like between the sealed and the unsealed? And it was, the sealed and keeping God's commandments and that kind of, it's really just about, how do you live, your everyday connection, your everyday relationship with God? How do you live, that life of having your, relationship with Jesus? And that's one of the things that people, they do like what it says. They don't show favoritism. We don't seek out our own, vengeance and justice on other people. But no, it's like it says, you give water to the thirsty and rest to the weary, and you think of others and take care of others. And that's kind of the, when you talk about the sealed, that's the kind of person, that the sealed of God, that's who they are because of their relationship with God. And one of the things that is like, on social media, that's kind of the, open arena for people to be able to anonymously and sometimes not anonymously, do this immediate exacting revenge on people they think are less than them or have wronged them, or on, companies or famous people or whoever, we can lash out and, online without, feeling any consequences for our, vengeance seeking. And it's the online social media is kind of a, I don't want to say microcosm. It's kind of it's the big looking glass of what humanity can really become, and how we treat others and act online when we feel like we can do it anonymously and we don't have to suffer any consequences for our words or actions. It's the open arena for the worst of human nature. But yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. And so basically, lest we think doing any of these good works ourselves, basically, that we are doing any of these good works ourselves, that we will be sealed because we are good people. Let's remember first that in the presence of God, all are equal, and we are entirely incapable of any good works under our own power. And so in Sabbath school, we wrapped that up with a story that we had told several months ago by now. With some of you may remember the story of the lost dog that we found, how she just kind of stopped our car and said, "Hey, I need help." So yeah, and really within probably less than an hour, we had her back home because we did a little bit of social mediating and found the people that were looking for her, and we took her home, and they came over and got her and such. And so the question of that, of course, is what did Luna do to get home? And that would be nothing. She did nothing except ask for the help. And anytime we need help from God, we just need to ask Him as well. And that's what He's there for.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did in Revelation and Sabbath school today.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It was a fun.
yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So next, I guess, is they do the 7 trumpets. Good luck with that. Boy, that's something else. And then the 7 bowls of wrath and all kinds of stuff coming up. And it'll be interesting to see how long our class continues with Revelation. Oh, they may go through the whole thing, but
They seem to be pretty determined. Aren't we
Yeah.
almost halfway through the book by now?
yeah, might be. We're getting there. But anyway, it's summertime, and what are you going to be doing this summer? And are you taking any trips? Are you going anywhere? Or are you just staying inside and trying to stay cool? Because here in Texas, that's why we're not out today. We were gonna go someplace and
Yeah.
but
This year just seemed to go from, oh, it's too cold, it's too windy, it's too this, that, whatever it was, too rainy, and now here we are, it's too hot.
it's pretty
We,
hot
we
out
seem
there,
to just skip any, wow, this is a perfect day to go out, and
yeah.
yeah.
But hopefully we'll get out and do some stuff and get around to Texas a little bit, see more of it. We've kind of done all the things that are close to us, so anything else we have to probably get in the garden, travel a little bit to see anything we haven't seen yet. So that'll see if we can work some of that in for this summer. Maybe Houston, I think we're talking about, and somewhere on the coast maybe. But Aspen, she just wants to stay home, and no, she doesn't want to go anywhere. And no, she's the one that wants to go everywhere. So she's the one that likes to travel. So anyway, so yeah, we'll see what our adventures in the road takes us, and I hope you had a good Sabbath. And we'll see you next week here on Salt, and have a good